Oh yeah.
All right, welcome to the Taking Umbrage podcast. We will be telling each other how dumb we are and telling you how dumb you are.
That rings true. Well, so first of all, taking umbrage here, where's that name come from?
Well, my daughter's name is Umbria, and we just thought that'd be a funny thing to do, I think, because she's always getting really snooty and angry about things, and it seems to make sense. And
Plus,
also,
so a little background, we've had a fantasy league for like a decade or so, from a bunch of people living in Shanghai, right? And what we love to do, the best thing in fantasy is to argue about nuances of fantasy football, right? We like to take umbrage with all of your stupid opinions about your stupid rules and who you think is better, who you think is worse, and why.
well, yeah, that too, I guess. I guess that's true. We usually don't come to a consensus on things. We like to say both people were trade raped, and you know, that's how you know somebody's winning and somebody's losing, right? When nobody's happy.
When nobody's happy, that's how you know you're having a great fantasy season.
That's how you know it's working. So, like Kyle said, we've been in a league together for about 10 years, but we've also had our own league separately. I've been playing for this to be my 21st year. And how many is it for you? You said 16 years for you, Kyle?
I want to say, I think 16, 17, something like that. I was in middle school. Like
a lot. Okay. It's a lot is the point.
A few anyway.
We've been doing this
a few
for a
championships along the way as well.
Right. I actually had the championship for my very first league. It was a Yahoo Fantasy Plus league, and in 2003. And when you paid for that subscription, you got mailed this like plaque with a helmet on it. And I actually didn't win, but the first place person didn't provide an email address because he didn't trust them, and the second person also felt bad about taking the first place person's trophy. So then I, who came in third place, got it sent to me because I did provide an email address. And I was like, yeah, I want that trophy. So I have a 2003 fantasy football trophy.
Relic of an old time back when people were like, I don't trust the internet. I'm not going to put stuff like my email address on a random website.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And now he's super jealous that he has it. Though he does have, we eventually in that home league got a proper, like, huge trophy, and has like all of our names of all the winning teams, and he's had it twice since we've gotten that, and I haven't had it, so I'm pretty angry about that, but that's okay.
Okay. Just be better. Be better.
Just be better. I know. So here in our first episode, we're going to tell you about some things that we like. As you can see from my shirt, I'm a Raiders fan. We've had 2 decades of sadness. And Kyle's a Seahawks fan. I guess it's been okay for you guys recently.
It's been really, my whole sports fandom career it's been a pretty good run, to be honest. I mean,
That's
really
good.
since 2000 we go to the Super Bowl in 2005, and it's just been kind of the playoffs most of the time. So it's been pretty nice, you know.
Is there anything
I
about
don't
that?
have a lot of room to complain.
Anything about that 2005 Super Bowl you want to take umbrage with, or?
All I have to say is the referees came to our training camp and apologized to the team. So that's all that needs to be said.
Well, that's good. That's good. You know, it's good to have apologies. Did you guys get a trophy or anything for that?
All I'm gonna say is we all know. Okay. Even the refs knew.
Even the refs knew. All right. Well, that's where we're gonna start today with our show with the Seattle Seahawks. Right. Everything that you want to know about this team, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about the Seahawks this year because, as we all know, Russell Wilson, big, franchise Super Bowl winning quarterback, gone. He asked for his way out, and he got his way out, and And now you're left with, well, the dregs.
Okay. So when you said we're going to talk about some things that we like, I'm going to specifically talk about some things that I don't like, and it's the Seahawks slander. I cannot accept the Seahawks slander that's going on. So I have kind of an overall like premise for my argument about this team, and it basically is that they are just not going to be as bad as you think. Okay. So anytime I listen to a podcast, I watch ESPN or the NFL Network or whatever, people are talking about the Seahawks just like kind of throwing it to the side. Basically everybody's just writing them off completely. I saw a Reddit thread about like who's a team that might surprise people, and you go through and it's like Dolphins, Lions, just on down the list, like of all these teams that like we think are bad, but maybe could even surprise people. They're not even mentioned in that. They're just like not even mentioned in anything other than just like they got rid of Russell Wilson, so they're going to be bad. They're not going to be as bad as you think. They're actually further along in their rebuild process than you would expect. They kind of started it actually like 2 years ago. So where a lot of people are like, oh, they're blowing it up this year. They've actually kind of like been on that track for a couple years already. So they're already a little bit further along in their like post Russell Wilson era development than you would expect. Another really big point here is that actually I do not think losing Russell Wilson will be a net negative, or at least not like a insurmountable net negative on like this real life football team and fantasy wise, which might sound crazy, but if you've been a Seahawks fan and you've watched this team the past couple of years, like you there's no way that you would be looking at like we're losing a legend. Like
Well,
he's not the same guy that he was a few years ago.
Maybe letting Russ cook is not as good as it used to be. I mean, I hope the Broncos got a raw deal and they.
I mean, well, this is one of the only times, because our fandom both goes back to AFC West Seahawks days. So we have actually a long history of not necessarily being fans of each other's team. That's kind of, I think some people forget about. A few other points that kind of trickle down from this. Number one, the Seahawks will have more plays per game this year than they did last year.
Yeah, I believe they had.
Offense
didn't they have the least?
Will
I think the defense had the most snaps of any team last year, and it was crazy. Like the time of possession, like they had the lowest time of possession of any team. Right?
Yes, and that was that. I put that like 99% on Russell Wilson's shoulders. Like we can talk about it a little bit more. If we do, we can talk about Denver Broncos stuff. Maybe we can talk why I think Russell Wilson is not as good as he used to be. And
we'll get into that later. We'll get into that later.
That's for another day. But I think third down offense and defense will improve. We'll have more plays on offense. And the other final thing here is there will be some value. Okay. When I say this team's going to be better than you think, I don't mean they're going to make the playoffs. I don't mean they're going to be the best offense in the football. But I just think that if you know what this team is like, how they work, what Pete Carroll likes to do, what Shane Waldron's effect on this offense might be, that there's going to be more value here than people think. And it's going to be more about picking and choosing the specific guys that are going to receive volume due to their talent and their fit within the system than it is about like Russell Wilson days. You could have like both DK and Tyler Lockett, and that could be good, right? So it's going to be more about one guy or the other at a lot of these positions. So yeah.
All right. So you want to
my general thesis here.
Get to you the main guy, who we assume will be the main guy, because he could lose to Drew Lock.
It's a big assumption, but I don't, as a former Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders fan, what do you think of Drew Lock?
He not good.
Sure. Okay, fine. So I would argue that Drew Lock, if you go back and you watch, he has talent. He has arm talent. He has traits, but he can't really put it all together. Anyway, I think Geno Smith is going to be the starting quarterback. I think I know this team. I know Pete Carroll. I know what he looks for. I know what he likes. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to replicate 2011, and I'm just telling you, it's going to be Geno Smith, right? So, uh, what,
What
so
is your
here's
point,
what I'm
right?
taking umbrage with. The idea that Russ to Geno is a major downgrade for the Hawks weapons. I simply don't think that's going to be across the board true. And a few reasons why here.
Here we go.
Um,
Sorry, give me a
I
thumbs up.
think
I'm controlling this, right? So give me a thumbs up or something when you want me to go to the next.
you're
Or
good.
just tell me.
You're good.
Okay.
So Geno Smith's going to come in and start day one. I'm telling you, that's just the way that it's going to be. And he will have command over the offense. He's, for the past couple of years, he's essentially been functioning as like an offensive assistant coach. You can watch him on the sidelines with the headphones on. There's even been a couple times where I don't have confirmation on this. They haven't like admitted this, but I'm pretty sure he was like calling plays for drives or series. There's just been a couple instances that made me think that the way that they like on the sideline were celebrating with him and stuff. Anyway, I think he knows this offense. He understands what we want to do. He comes to the line of scrimmage with a plan. That's not necessarily true for his whole career. I think he's grown and developed a little bit as he's gotten older in terms of his football IQ. Basically, every physical trait for him, his speed, his arm strength, his accuracy is like, okay. A ringing endorsement. It's all solid. But there's a couple things that maybe you could even say are better than Russell Wilson here. One of them was his inside the box passing last year, which was like in his very small sample size, like the top 10 quarterback. His passer rating in inside the tackle box was actually really incredible. His completion percentage was like 70 some odd percent. His passer rating was like 120 or something crazy. Anyway.
I mean,
And
I
I
remember
think that he
watching it.
fits.
I remember watching the 2 games or so that he started last year, and he looked like competent. He certainly looked like he could do stuff. He wasn't. If you were starting him those weeks in fantasy, then you were happy with the results for sure.
Well, if you were starting him with fantasy, it means you had other issues, and he
Well,
he was he was he was serviceable considering those issues. And I think he's a better scheme fit than Russ, and that's going to be especially true for one of the Seahawks weapons. We'll talk about a little bit later, but anyway. So the first thing I want to think about is the actual pass volume. So philosophically, and we've had this discussion before, I believe in talent over volume because I think talent brings on volume
right. This is
to a
like
certain extent.
contradictory counter to all fantasy football analysts who always say volume
Yeah.
is king. Volume is king.
Yeah. Right. We have the volume is king narrative is like, that's the king narrative.
It is, yeah.
But when it comes to something like passing volume, I kind of get it. There's an element of team and system that is going to lead to some teams passing the ball more and some teams passing the ball less. So I get it in that sense. Now, to try to put a little bit of this offense in context, what's the passing volume going to be like? So in his limited sample size last year, Geno Smith attempted 26 passes per start. He only played 38% of the snaps in week 5 against the Rams, but I think he threw something like 17 passes or something like that. I don't know. He threw quite a few passes in that 38%. But anyway, that is basically the lowest attempts per game in the Pete Carroll era. So 2013, back when we had Marshawn, Legion of Boom, and Russell Wilson was in his second year, that was our lowest pass volume, 25.7. So basically like what we saw last year. The high being 34.8. We hit 34.7 twice. So I think that kind of, even in of itself, goes a little bit against the narrative of Seahawks, Pete Carroll, run, pass.
Yeah.
Just as a lay fan, you would be like, they run the ball too much. Because
Well,
that's
I
the narrative,
remember
right?
at the beginning of Russell Wilson's career, it was very much like game manager, don't go too crazy, I seem to recall him having like 20 passes per game. I'm surprised it was 25.7. To be honest, I thought it was going to be lower than that actually.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that even that. Yeah, I think that was around the lowest in the league that year. But even still, like, there's there's at least some volume there. It's not like they're passing the ball 10 times a game.
Yeah.
In the Pete Carroll era, his average pass attempts is 30.4. But what I really want to like kind of frame my Geno Smith argument with is the 2011 season, because that was the year before Russ. That was with Tavares Jackson and Clipboard Jesus. And in that year, they threw the ball 31.8 times, so higher than the Pete Carroll average, which is kind of interesting. Like, they had Marshawn Lynch that year even as well too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they didn't have a great running back. They had Sean back then. So I think that the idea they're going to pass, like the passing volume is going to be like what it was this last year, or as bad as people think the Pete Carroll offensive pass volume will be, is I just don't think that's true. I think we're going to be looking at 30 to 31, 32 pass attempts a game, even though we don't think Geno Smith is the best. It's the modern NFL. It's just like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
For a little bit of context, Carson Wentz was 16 in attempts per game at 30.4. So 30.4, Pete Carroll's average, is basically average in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, the whole run, pass thing is kind of like, there's just no teams in the NFL that do that really actually anymore. Every team passes more than you think they do.
Yeah.
So that's just a bit about kind of setting the context, the passing volume context of where we can sort of think about and stat out Geno himself and some of his weapons as well.
Okay.
So what did that 26 passes per game turn into in terms of fantasy production? 14.6 points per game last year in his 4 games. I think I might have adjusted that for his 38% snap percentage.
So you counted that game where he only had 38% snaps, or you took it out?
I did. I think I adjusted. I think I adjusted for it. Okay. So I did like his total pass attempts divided by 3.38.
Oh, okay, sure.
I think his points per game, or his total points divided by 3.38, something like that. Okay. Which is quarterback 25. Would you like to start quarterback 25, Jason?
No. Not unless you have to start 3 quarterbacks.
Well, unless there's bye weeks as well, maybe this
okay.
week 8 and there's just a bunch of bye weeks. Maybe, hey, maybe.
We should say that for the record, we play mostly Superflex, chiefly Superflex. Right. In fact, I don't think I'm in a league that's not Superflex. Just so you know. So everything we're going on here it would be 2 quarterbacks that we're starting.
I think at this point, if you're not doing Superflex, I don't know what you're doing. I don't get it.
They're steeped in tradition.
Like when we can talk about Superflex versus 1 quarterback later.
keep going.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. But in those games, 175 yards a game, not great. But he did have a 5-to-1 touchdown ratio, and his 1 interception, I would argue, whether that was or should not have been an interception totally depends on your fandom, what team, what color laundry you root for, because one could argue that Tyler Lockett, who is my co-host here, was tripped by a defensive player, or you could argue, if you're wrong and you root for the Rams, that he just tripped on his own, so even that 1 interception is kind of debatable.
Right.
Again,
I root for the black and the white, okay? That's justice. The referees, okay? Because they're truthful, honest.
Well, I don't know. Go back and watch all the Rams games from last year and tell me there's such thing as justice in the NFL. I don't know.
It's okay. I'm a Raiders fan. We are the most penalized team, of all time. I get it.
Hey, we're right there. We're right there. Anyways, fantasy production's not fantastic But I think that there's a few reasons for that. Number one, he played against the number 4 and number 8 ranked defenses in terms of passing defense DVOA last year in the Saints and the Steelers. So 2 of his 3 starts were against 2 great pass defenses. So you would expect that the team would try to figure out a way to win a different way, right? They're not going to throw 35 times against the number 4 pass defense when you have a backup quarterback coming off like 1 week of reps with this team, right? You're just not going to do that. So I think it makes sense to assume that pass volume will come up. Again, coming back to that 2011 season, Tavares Jackson threw 450 times, right? With Tavares Jackson was not good. I love Tavares Jackson. Rest in peace, by the way. Rest in peace, Tavares Jackson. He was not good. 60% completion percentage and basically 1-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions. And even still, in 15 games, he threw 30 times a game. So there's no way Geno's going to be that bad, and there's no way that he's going to throw less than Tavares Jackson threw. I just don't believe it. I don't buy it. That's not going to happen.
Maybe Rashad Penny and Ken Walker kill it, and they don't have to pass the ball. They just run the ball 30 times a game.
I'm not going to argue that that's possible. I'm not going to argue. I think they're going to be incredible. Any praise to my Seahawks, I will accept. But based on if we just took Geno's efficiency and effectiveness for last season, we extended that to the volume that even Tavares Jackson had in this offense under Pete Carroll, he would have been getting like close to 16 points a game, right? He would have been there with the Jimmy Garoppolos, your boy, Derek Carr, Tannehill, Wentz, Daniel Jones. He's in that category of quarterback that is not great. No offense. I mean, you have arguments against that, but not great in my opinion. But definitely startable in super flex leagues. I think he's going to be in that tier of quarterback.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me Derek Carr is way better than that. Go ahead.
I have many reasons why he's better. We'll get to that eventually. Don't worry. Just number one is he has natural, eyeshadow and mascara or eyeliner or something going on, and he's just got very smoky eyes, and that does it for me.
I tried to find the picture that gave him the most mascara-y look that I could find. I did that on purpose.
Mascara, if you will. Mascara? Oh, how has that not been a team name? Mascara. Anyways, let's keep going here. It's stupid. So, what do you think is going to happen here? Your bearish case, your middle ground case, your bullets case?
Right. So, I think a general fantasy philosophical thing that I agree with is trying to think about what is the floor, the ceiling, and kind of the most likely or the middle path for any play that you're thinking about. When you do projections, I think you want to think, what is the ceiling? What's the highest that this could be? In Geno Smith's case, I think his ceiling is actually like the startable QB2, like firmly startable QB2, even week in and week out startable QB2. If we look at his efficiency from last year and extrapolate that, and even like adjust it, regress back to the mean a little bit, he could be like 26 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, just based on what we saw from him last year, based on what kinds of production we see from this offense, and thinking even again about adjusting that 5-to-1 touchdown ratio down to closer to like league average of like being like 4% touchdown rate and closer to 2% interception rate. I mean, we're looking at potentially a quarterback that could get a decent amount of touchdowns and very low interceptions.
One thing I noticed that's stable amongst this entire thing of each of the cases is you have 250 yards rushing. You seem very confident that he's going to have that rushing floor. What makes you so confident about that?
Right. So Geno Smith One problem, it's not going to affect you in fantasy, but it will affect the Seahawks probably in real life a little bit more, is he holds on to the ball too long. And I just think he's going to have probably 2 or 3 scrambles a game. He's going to take maybe 3 sacks a game, potentially. It can be bad, but he's going to have a few scrambles a game where he just doesn't find somebody and takes off. And he has like 4.5 speed. But like it's probably like now he's 30. He's probably in the 4.6 range, but he's not slow. He's not a run first quarterback, but you think back to West Virginia days and he was totally a mobile quarterback back then. He was absolutely. And if you look at basically his rush attempts and rush yards per game, he's going to get like 250 rushing yards. It's not a lot, it's a little bit, but it's a nice little buffer. He's going to rush for a couple touchdowns. He got 1 last year. It's just I am pretty confident that that's just going to be. He's not going to be better, not going to be worse. He's probably just going to hit right around that number, 250 and 2 touchdowns. So my bullish case, he throws 30 to 31 times a game. Again, that's not insane considering this offense. It's not. And 3,600 yards could even be on the lower end of that ceiling. If you look at his second year, and if you adjusted his pass volume to that 30 to 31 passes per game, he would have actually gotten over 3,700, like 38, 3,900 in his second year back with the Jets. Obviously, his efficiency wasn't as good then, but I think that's like a perfectly reasonable ceiling for him to be quarterback 18 to 22.
Yeah, honestly, without having looked at any of this stuff that you've looked at, just knowing the weapons that he has in Lockett and Metcalf, and seeing what he did in this, short stint last season, I would even put him there based on just that alone. Like I don't even know all of these other. I didn't know about all of that other stuff that you were talking about. But just like, that's a bet. Obviously, you're not saying he's definitely going to be there, but that's the thing with all of the QBs in this range, right? And when you're getting past like the low end QB2s and the QB3s, they're all kind of people that they could be good, they could be bad. Like Jared Goff could be good. He used to be really good when he was on the Rams. Like maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown continues to be good, and Jameson Williams comes back and he kills it, and DJ Chark ends up being great or something. DeAndre Swift stays not injured and catches 100 passes from Goff. All of these kind of players in that range could do this. I'm not saying Goff's going to do that. I'm just saying that I can see how this could be a path for Smith. How there could be a path for Smith.
Right. I mean, once you get past those surefire quarterbacks, I think like that the Derek Carr line is kind of like the point where it's like if you're less than Derek Carr, then you're kind of in this group that no. Derek Carr slander is taking umbrage with this.
You're trying to say that that's the new Dalton line is Derek Carr? Are you kidding me?
I'm saying below the Derek Carr kind of line, because I'm saying Derek Carr is a guy that you can be like, yeah, you could start him every week and that's fine. You don't think about it.
I know what you mean.
Once you get below that
I
group,
feel you.
It's kind of like what difference is there really between the quarterback 15 and the quarterback 25? Like there isn't a huge difference.
Well, I would say there is that group of second year quarterbacks that are kind of the ones with the rushing upside, especially like Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, I think could do something, well, maybe not Justin Fields. I don't know what's going on with that offense, but maybe Trevor Lawrence is a whole change to his offensive thing. And maybe Urban Meyer was just holding him back majorly and something happens. I think there is another group in there where there's like a still unknown high upside plays, but anyways, stop.
Yeah, I mean, just the last thing to finish off my Geno Smith here.
Mm-hmm.
If he basically puts in the volume that he was on pace for last year, and he's about as efficient as he was like in year 2 or year 1, even the worst case scenario, in my opinion, is still like a bye week streamer quarterback in Superflex leagues. It's still in the cards, even if it's like this goes as bad as possible. Low volume, low efficiency. He's still gonna pop up every once in a while. You're gonna have a bye week or 2 bye weeks, and he'll be like, ah. And I would say he's got a low floor week to week, in my opinion. Or sorry, a high floor, low ceiling, high floor week to week.
Okay. Word.
Anyway, that's those are my Geno Smith thoughts.
Okay, so we just finished talking about your boy Geno Smith and what he's going to do. And now we're going to look at the other side for a moment and look at the dark side of the Las Vegas Raiders, what I like to call a sleeping offensive juggernaut. Yeah, it's going to happen. Okay, it's going to happen.
They're sleeping all right. They're sleeping.
Well, they don't sleep in Vegas, which is interesting, I guess. I should have said the never sleeping offensive juggernaut. I don't know.
Maybe that's the real problem here.
I just want you guys to know that the autumn wind is a pirate, all right? Blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song, he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash with a silver hat about his head and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold, and the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
All right, NFL Films. Let's give a round of applause.
All right, so I'm going to give a quick overview of the key offensive weapons for the Raiders. Y'all already know about QB Derek Carr. Y'all already know about a big-time wide receiver, Devontae Adams. Yep. The lesser known, but should be well known, wide receiver Hunter Renfrow, running back.
Don't sleep.
That's right, much maligned running back Josh Jacobs. Good guy Darren Waller.
You can sleep. You can sleep.
And even our kicker Daniel Carlson. That's right. We'll have a little kicker thing in here, even though one of our new leagues has decided to take out kickers. For those of you who still play, here's a preview. Darren Carlson, he good. All right, so
2 quarterback, no kicker. What are we doing, people? Superflex, 2 quarterback, no kickers. Don't get rid of the kickers.
Some people
just don't do it.
Right? Some people use kickers. All right, so Derek Carr. All right, his heights, his best season, 2016. In our settings in Yahoo Fantasy, he was the QB 8 that year. That was the year that he was an MVP candidate. He threw for almost 4,000 yards, 64% completion rate, with a 28-6 TD/INT ratio. And you can see he got some awards, man. They thought he did well. I mean, he didn't win, but third in MVP voting, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. And of course, he went to the Pro Bowl that year. Of course, he also had his fibula broken in week 16. I was vacationing in Thailand, and I always watched the game. So, by the way, we live in China. We didn't say that. And actually, I'm recording
the world's first China-based fantasy football podcast, probably.
Yeah, right, for sure. And we're based in Shanghai, but I'm currently in the mountains in a village, like a small little village, in like this like really old house of my wife's relative. So it's kind of funny that we're doing this here.
Living that development life.
Living that
developing nation's life.
That's right. Anyway, so we're used to watching games behind schedule. We always, Monday at home after work, we'll watch the games all condensed, except for, obviously our games we'll watch full because we really want to see as much as we can. For fantasy, we love watching the film and seeing how players did. And on that day, I think it was Christmas morning, I woke up in Thailand while looking for a wedding destination, a wedding venue. And I woke up to a text message from my friend who already watched the game and didn't respect my watching lateness and was like, "Hey man, sorry about Derek Carr." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, he broke his leg. You didn't see?" No! This is the first time we were good.
This is like our perennial struggle is the people back home that don't get it. Like we've lived over here for like a long time. Long time. I'm not talking about like I've been here for a year and it's taken some getting used to. Like my dad will send me a message to spoil a Seahawks game. I'm on year 9 here, and I'm still like 2 times a season. We'll be like, oh, did you? Like,
Did you
man,
see
how many
Russell's
times have I told you?
turnover? Yeah, the thing is that the person who spoiled it for me is my friend in Shanghai, and he knows better. He should know better. Anyways,
I've been that guy a few times.
it was
Anyway,
not it was not a happy Christmas. We'll just say.
I
Right?
want to add on to a little bit about your Derek Carr point here. That year that he was third in MVP voting, like he legit deserved to be third in MVP voting.
He
Just,
did.
I mean, obviously if he would have played a few more games, who knows? But just based off of what he did in those games, he was incredible. He kind of like took football by the balls there, and I think we kind of forget that a little bit because we've watched the next 5 years of his career.
Well, we were, and you saw the years before that also. We were lucky with a lot of like very close games, kind of similar to this past year actually, where we had a lot of very close one-score games, and Jack Del Rio was started off the year with that. That was the game when I think we scored the tying touchdown with like 15 seconds left in the game in the Superdome in New Orleans, and he decided we're going for 2. And he passed like a quick out or something to Crabtree to get the 1-point lead, and we ended up winning that game. And that started like the run of calling him Blackjack Del Rio and gambling a bunch that season, and it ended up paying off. Carr took
And he's
advantage of
gone
it.
now. He's gone.
When he's gone, yeah, when he's gone now, and I'm kind of happy about it. Oh, so was the coach that followed him, and I'm also kind of happy about that too. We'll get to that later. So Derek Carr's career notes, all right? He, when he made the Pro Bowl in 2016, he also made the Pro Bowl in 2017. He came back from that leg injury, and he ended up only missing 1 game the following year, but it was because of a back injury. He ended up like breaking a disc in his back or something, and he missed the next left midway through the game, missed the next game, and then there was a bye, I believe, and then he came back. So like he broke a bone and he came back, like broke his back, and he came back to play. And he still ended up making the Pro Bowl that year. But any fans who watched all those games, like me included, we all thought that he looked like he was playing scared. And I would be. I'm obviously not a professional football player, but if you have broken bones in your body and you just had your leg broken, and you might be a little scared taking a hit. And people for sure saw that in that year. And I think that has been what people have seen throughout since then. They still say that he's doing that, even though he has done many things, sometimes boneheadedly, that go against that narrative, when he's scrambling on 4th down and ends up taking a gigantic shot and is nowhere near close to getting the first down, or scrambling and trying to get to the end zone and ends up fumbling out of the back of the end zone. He's not a scared guy anymore. He plays tough. He is tough. And you could see how comfortable he was over the next 4 seasons when he successfully threw for, very good, almost elite, I'd say, completion percentages, 68, 70, 67, 68%. That's great completion percentages, and over 4,000 yards each year. There's
So
this narrative.
Two things.
Yep.
2 things. Number one, a general fantasy philosophical thing, or even just if you just like football, you don't even care about fantasy, like the narratives of what teams and players are does not match the reality so often. I mean, how often as a Raiders fan are you like, yeah, what the national media is saying about our guy or our guys is like, yeah, it's perfectly reasonable. We don't pay attention to any individual teams as much as we pay attention to our own teams. And we don't know as much about the league as a whole and all the different teams and players as we do about our own team. And nobody else does as well. Nobody knows our team as well as we do, right?
Right.
So often those things don't match, just all the time.
That's why it's fun when you argue with your own fan base about it. And Derek Carr has been a point of contention for a long time. It's at least on the RNFL or the R Raiders subreddit.
And the other thing
you love
I want to say though is like Derek Carr, for the kinds of reasons why I don't I'm not as high on him as you are. Toughness is not one of them. That's definitely just his character and who he is as a player and how he plays the game of football. Like I would not call him not tough. I would
Yeah.
not ding him on toughness. I think that's definitely for the flaws that he has. Like toughness is not one of them.
Yeah. I mean, Joey Bosa said that last year, and then he got to watch his team lose to him and not make the playoffs. So that was fun. Sweet, sweet revenge. Anyways,
So here's
let's
a bit
move.
of a narrative thing here, right?
Yeah,
Derek
it
Carr, the
is.
check down machine.
This is the narrative, and it's patently false. At least in recent years, detractors often cite this, that his yards per attempt are so terrible. Oh, he has all these yards, but they're empty because they're all just checkdowns to his running backs. He's not doing anything. But let's look at the past 6 seasons. You can see from that MVP candidate season, 2016, where he was 19th in the league at 7.0, 22nd, 20th, and then he jumped up to 9th, 5th, and 10th the last 3 years. Here are a couple graphs that show how those yards per attempt in the NFL rank have changed, going from the bottom half of the league to the top half of the league, bottom third of the league to the top third of the league. Now, I'm not sure what's driving this. Maybe the coaches were feeling more comfortable. Maybe Gruden was starting to feel more comfortable with him after he took over in, I think it was 2018, and just, once he felt he had to command the offense, he was letting him air it out more. Maybe it was Waller's coming on that did something about it. Obviously, there was Ruggs there, who was a major deep threat, and Deshaun Jackson a bit, but I don't know what it was, but I do know that he throws the ball down the field. And the thing is, he's good at it. His deep ball accuracy is not bad. It's very good. According to Next Gen Stats, Carr ranked 9th best in 2021, just ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams, former quarterback, whom everybody is saying, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr." Obviously, it's a huge downgrade. I'm not arguing that Derek Carr is better than Aaron Rodgers, but in this one particular stat, well, I am actually, because in this one particular stat, it appears that Derek Carr was better than Aaron Rodgers at throwing the deep ball. So, considering that Devontae Adams is a deep threat, he's actually an everywhere threat. But considering he's a major deep threat and he will be on the team, this is an important thing to know, that he stands tall in the pocket despite a terrible offensive line, which ranked 28th in the league last year, and he still racked up 860 passing yards from inside that tackle box. So he stood there like, man, he was tough in there, and took those hits while slinging the ball deep. Yeah.
So a point on offensive line play, like maybe we can have full episodes talking about that, but offensive line play, I think people misunderstand it so much that like offensive line play is so up and down. Your scheme, your system, your coaching, your development matter a lot, but also, year over year, it's not the most sticky stat. It's not like, you have Devontae Adams is just this great wide receiver year over year. Like there's a lot of offensive linemen are up and down, and their performance individually almost doesn't matter in the context of their entire offensive line. If they all are all working together well, then it can be better, even if they as individual talents are worse. And just year over year, offensive line stats, like their performance is just so.
So I think I've lost you. Uh-oh.
Offensive line players. So to be ranked that low in a season, to be 28th per PFF, like I just assume you probably get some regression to the mean, just based off of nothing. Honestly, just the way the offensive lines work in the NFL.
Well, it didn't help that I believe 3 of our starters entering the season were injured, so that didn't help, and we had to move around our rookie from his natural position to another position because he wasn't working out. I think he was drafted to be a right tackle, and he ended up moving into right guard. and Leatherwood was just like a turnstile. Everybody was getting through there, and it just wasn't working out. But obviously, Carr still had great success, and it wasn't like he was just throwing the ball to his running backs, though he did do that. He was throwing the ball deep. I'm sure that you guys remember that beautiful deep ball to Henry Ruggs over the Steelers against the Steelers in week 5, I think it was. Oh, stupid Henry Ruggs. So terrible what happened. But
yeah, so moving a rookie offensive lineman and having him bounce around positions, that's really good for your offensive line performance, isn't it?
no, it's not. It's not. So before we talk about what happened last year, I want to talk about those receivers from 2016 because 2016 is when he had his best pair of receivers. He had Amari Cooper and he had Michael Crabtree. And these were the stats that they racked up those years. 2,000-yard receivers. They both had a lot of targets, 132, 145, but actually not that many receptions. They didn't have very good catch rate. Now, you might think maybe that has to do with Derek Carr throwing inaccurately, but no, it's actually because, well, Crabtree had pretty good hands, but Cooper especially had some bad hands. On this team, he spread out the ball amongst the other players besides Cooper and Crabtree. But I wanted to go back to the point about the lost yardage that he could have had. His catch rate is kind of not so great. I mean, it's fine, but it's something to tip your hat over for a 63% catch rate, right? I found this lovely stat that shows Derek Carr could have had 318 more yards if not for all the drop passes from his receivers that year. So that would have put him over.
All I want to say there,
4,300 yards.
Is that I'm on Derek Carr's side on this one because we all know that Michael Crabtree's a sorry receiver.
Well, he was pretty good that year. So let's look at the receivers now for next year. So these are the receivers that he has for next year, and these are the stats from last season. Now, obviously, Davante Adams wasn't on the team, but we can still check these out. And you can see that the thing that stood out to me immediately was, I mean, obviously the yardage total from Davante Adams is insane, as well as his high number of touchdowns. But the catch rate of Hunter Renfrow is actually the thing that stuck out to me the most. That is really good, 80.5% catch rate. And we're going to get into more of that when we start specifically talking about Hunter Renfrow. But we had a bit of a down year for Darren Waller here with the 60.5% catch rate. But having these fairly reliable, Darren Waller as good as his best two receivers, almost as good as his best two receivers in that previous season, with two other guys who are much better at catching the ball and going deep and getting in the slot. I think that says something about it. And the last thing here, I just point at the screen, you can't see what I'm pointing at, is the current ADP. Now, Kyle put me onto this idea, and it put me down this rabbit hole looking at the ADP. Because if you look at this, you can see Davante Adams is really high, late first round pick. Darren Waller in the 4th round, and Hunter Renfrow in the 7th round. Trying to do the math in my head real quick. Now, we, for the most part, actually do auction drafts. I'm in like three major leagues, and 2 of them do auctions, and the other one, it just started. So the 2 main leagues that I've been in, we've done auction drafts for years. So I'm not caring so much about ADP. I just look at players that I like, and that's kind of what this whole thing is about. Like, we like these players. That's why, ADP is important, and we're going to talk about why it's important, but that's why, talent, and it's who do you like, and it's who do you like to watch. I think that's also important. Watching these players play, do you like the shiftiness of that player? Do you like the way that he looks when he's running? I know that sounds stupid, but like, I'm watching this player. I like to watch that player play, I know Myles Garrett's great. I don't necessarily like his style of play compared to, TJ Watt was a little bit different, I feel like. Just like the hulking mass that is Myles Garrett is a different player than TJ Watt, even though obviously Garrett's a great player and I will want him on my teams, but That's
You want to win, but you want it to be fun,
you want.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Was there anything more fun than having Marshawn Lynch on your fantasy football team in like
Exactly.
2013, 2012? There's nothing
Exactly.
more fun because you got to
Exactly.
watch him. He was good for you and helping you win games, but also the most fun running back I think of. In my opinion, I'm biased here, but I think he's the most fun running back of all time. I don't think
Uh,
there's a more fun running back.
I feel like you should get bonus points when you jump in the air and grab your crotch going into the end zone. They don't have a setting for that, but if they
I
did,
respect that.
maybe
I
they should.
respect it.
Maybe they should.
If we can make that a stat in fantasy, you get points for that, I would do it.
How many flags can you get for taunting? Should be a positive.
Fontes, perfect, first round pick.
Oh God. Well, his are not taunting. His are like unsportsmanlike conduct for terrible hits to the head. I'm pretty sure he had one against Cooper, Amari Cooper, back when Cooper was on the Raiders. Ugh.
Let's make it the fun league, not the no fun league.
That's
Come
right.
on.
Anyways, let's get back to this. So, you notice the number of targets that these players have, and when you add them up together, it comes out to about 400 targets. Okay, Derek Carr threw the ball 620 times last season. 620. Now, obviously, Waller missed some time. So, maybe at 8.5 targets per game, that's another, let's say 50, 52 targets. That puts him at 140. So if you add 50, that's 450. That still leaves 170 targets in theory if they were all to get the same target share. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I do think that they will probably all go down a little bit in their target share. I don't think Devontae Adams is going to get 170 targets. Like, Aaron Rodgers had nobody else to throw to on that team. Like, he's great and he can find other receivers, but I just don't think that Devontae Adams I don't think that Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are trash, like, receivers that are not going to garner looks the way that the receiving core in Green Bay did last year. Like, do you agree with that?
I don't know why. We can discuss this another time, but I don't know. I actually have no idea what they're going to be doing this year. I have
In
no
Green Bay?
idea. But like, who is Aaron Rodgers going to throw to?
He's got the Lizard King, Alan Lazard.
Alan Lazard's like, his success rate on routes is like 17th percentile in man coverage. Like, he's not good. He's not actually good.
He's not, but yeah,
So
Christian Watson looks pretty good. I drafted him one of our rookie drafts, watching some highlights. That dude looks like a beast, like a genetic freak show, man. I mean, I guess all these players do.
Again, we could have a Trey Lance discussion later, but he did make Trey Lance look a lot better. I think Trey Lance is better.
Well, yeah, I know how much you hate Trey Lance. Anyways, let's get to the point here of this section, and it has to do with the ADP. The current ADP of these players are shown here, and oops, sorry, went out of order. I'll get back to the ADP thing in a second. Derek Carr, we already talked about this. Only missed 2 games. He's a veterinary leader. He's a field general. He knows what he's doing. He checks to the right plays, or at least he's trying to. He can read defenses pretty well and change the protection up. And he's pretty clutch. I mean, obviously that doesn't mean much for fantasy, except for that, if his defense can hold in there, there's always a chance for him to score in the last minute of the game, last 2 minutes of the game. It's happened a ton, and he has the most since 2015. I noticed my good offense has no notes below it. That's dumb. But I think we all can agree that he has a good offense around him. Let's get into the top projected offenses of 2022. I agree with
each of those points there. I agree with each of those.
Let's get into the top projected offenses.
I can talk about some flaws with Derek Carr, but each of those things I agree with.
He only missed 2 games. I mean, I know obviously he broke his leg in the end of the season, but like, nobody's coming back from a broken leg. So that's not really a knock against somebody. It's like their willingness to play through injury. He played through dislocated pinkies. He played with the broken disc in his back. He's played through, all sorts of injuries where other players are like, nah, I'm just going to rehab. I'm not going to come back. I froze my feet off.
My question though, when he broke his leg, did he flip the bird to his coach on the sideline and then dive off the deep end of the pool into Crazy Town?
No.
That's an Earl Thomas reference. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like Marcus Mariota because they're fibula bros. They both broke their fibulas. And then I was thinking maybe, I don't know. Anyways,
Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas might have. That's a whole other point. He might have like ruined his chances of making the Hall of Fame. He was like surefire Hall of Fame, and I feel like he's borderline at this point now. And it's
I mean,
kind
he
of
kind of just fell off at the end.
if
I
he just
feel like.
if he just played and was
Yeah.
the same person for like 2 more years, it was like potential first ballot Hall of Fame stuff. Anyway,
Potential.
I don't know.
I went to 3 different websites to find the projected offenses for 2022. Fox Sports has them in this order: Chiefs, Bills, Rams, Packers, Chargers, Bengals, Bucks, Broncos, Jags, Raiders. So the Raiders are 10th here. The game day: Bills, Bucks, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Rams, Packers, Bengals, Raiders, Ravens. They have the Raiders at 9th. And Yard Barker, who has the Raiders at 11th. I added them in there. So that's an average of 10th among these 3. Okay, so they're projecting these supposed, they're analysts. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for a long time. They got a big budget. They're staking all this time to do this. Right, we trust what they have to say, right? You have any
I mean,
qualms or problems with
Fox
any of
Sports
these?
put the Jags in the
I,
top 10.
I
So
know.
I
I
don't know
know.
if
I could not believe when I saw that they put the Jaguars as the number 9 offense in the league. It's like, you are insane, Fox Sports.
I don't know what you got, but I'm having a hard time finding it in China. You can't find that kind of stuff around here anymore, but I would like some of that, please. Pass that over here. Let's do a little illegal import export on this.
Well,
Fox Sports.
I like that they put the Raiders at 10. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with these teams other than the Jags being ahead of them. And same with these ones.
I don't have any problems putting the Raiders as a top
10,
10
right?
offense.
Top 10 offense.
It
I mean,
seems yeah,
over here in the Yard Barker, I think the Cardinals, I don't know about the Cardinals. I feel like they got questions with their team. What's their offense going to look like now that, I know that they were good with just James Conner with no Chase Edmonds last year, but what about no DeAndre Hopkins? How is Marquise Brown going to fit in there? But, also the Ravens, like, are they going to be able to recapture that offensive magic that they had? Are they going to revert to their run-heavy offense? Is Lamar going to be a video game player again, or what's going to happen there? So I think there's more safety in the Raiders, but I do see the upside, obviously, with Kyler and Lamar there. But point being, general consensus that they're pretty good offense, all right? But something I wanted to note, and this goes back to the ADP thing, and this is what Kyle suggested I look into here, was that the Raiders are the only team to have 4 skill players drafted in the top 80 picks, according to Fantasy Pros consensus ADP rankings. And I thought this was really interesting. Actually, you noted that Hunter Renfrow is 76.2, and some places have him going as high as 66. I think you said you saw him going for 66 on some other site, right, Kyle?
yeah. I mean, ADP is so
Yeah, it
depends
fluctuates.
on which
It's
site you go
July,
to.
right? It's July still. They haven't been that many drafts, but I've done a few of them myself already, so there's definitely drafts happening. um, but like, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. There's 4 skill players drafted in the top 80 picks. I went through and looked at a ton of data, and by looked at, I mean I compiled. I went around to. This took a long time. So this is this year's ADP, right? Obviously, this is still in flux, so this might not be exactly what it is right now because I did this like last week. But if you look at these teams, I took the 10 that or 11 teams that were just looked at from those sites, and then I also chose some other ones that I thought had some good players on them that I thought might be pretty good as well. So you can see the Raiders, Chargers, Bills, so on, and their top 4 weapons that they have, and then the average. Now, unsurprisingly, we have the Bengals here way up high as well because of Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon and T. Higgins as their top heavy talent. Now, I think Tyler Boyd was Tyler Boyd, yeah, he was number 4, and he was at 130. But their top 3 are insane with Higgins going at 32. The only other close one really was the Cowboys and the Vikings. The Cowboys had CD, Zeke, Schultz, and Pollard. And I guess Pollard is technically right at the cusp, of breaking the top 80. So maybe they could be added to that list. But I kind of see it as, Pollard and Zeke. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if Zeke does well, is Pollard going to do well? I don't think that they're both going to be doing well. Whereas I think that all four of these players on the Raiders are going to be doing well. And that same goes for all of these other teams. I'm not sure, for the most part, that all of these players, all four of them, will have significantly good seasons. So I have the Raiders doing that, the Niners maybe doing that, and maybe the Cowboys with some like flex appeal for Pollard, and I don't know. Maybe you could say the Dolphins might. They could be the sneaky one. We talked about the Seahawks and how they might be better than we thought, and maybe it could be them. If Cook gets injured and Madison starts half the season, then they both return value. Maybe the Eagles' offense looks great, and they all perform. But that's not what people are betting on, right? People are betting on the Raiders. Like that's what this shows, is that people all believe that the Raiders are actually going to do well. If we look at, I just showed you the top 4 ADP, and here's that graph in a bigger size so you can see it better. The Jaguars are a joke. I cannot believe that they were in that list. That was the top 4, and I understandably, that's a lot of players and a lot of mouths to feed, and it would require a lot of offense to have 4 players produce. So I also looked at the top 3 average, and here you can see the Bengals and Vikings and Chargers are the 3 teams above the Raiders here, because they have 3 very high picks that are being taken. And the Chargers, obviously, Chargers and Bengals, I guess, especially, but Chargers especially have Justin Herbert, who himself as the QB is being taken very highly, especially in Superflex leagues where he's going as like the number 2 or number 3 quarterback off the board. Now, I'm not saying the Raiders and Derek Carr is going to be better than Joe Burrow. I'm not saying he's going to be better than Justin Herbert necessarily. What I am saying is that he has the tools to succeed, right? And it's clear that people across the board agree that he does have those tools to succeed. And if you look at some historical data, this also took a freaking long time to compile. But if you look at this historical data, you can see from 2017, I went through the past 5 seasons, the top 10 quarterbacks. The blue line shows the improvement from their ADP to where they finished. So Alex Smith finished as a quarterback 6. That's what the 6 here means. And that means he was drafted at quarterback 22. And here, the top 3 averaged 34.4 in ADP. Bingo. Hello. If you're having players that are going, someone's got to give them the ball. This should have been so obvious to us to see when you have a player like this. Same with Ben Roethlisberger over here. 15.6 for his top 3. Are you kidding me? And the top 4, it says 15.6 also because the 4th was undrafted. So anytime it's the same number, it's because they were undrafted. So that's kind of a bad one. But you can see it was like Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and I'm blanking on who was the 3rd player. In 2017, maybe it was Juju. I don't remember. But 15.6 is insane, right? You're talking about 2 players in the top 10 and then a player in like the 20s or something, or in the 30s. And this graph shows you that players are exceeding the expectation. Newton was projected to be a top 10 quarterback, or he was drafted as a top 10 quarterback. He still had pretty good weapons. 58.6 is not bad, but it's kind of one of the worst ones. You can see that this doesn't account for kind of the rushing quarterbacks. So Newton was a big-time rushing quarterback at the time, and if you look carefully here, none of these other quarterbacks were, except for maybe Russell Wilson.
At the time.
Yeah, Russ, at the time.
Russ, yeah, right. So that's actually a really good point. That the better that your weapons are being drafted, like people have like a relatively good sense of, you know, where players should be drafted, right? And if you have 4 of them or 3 of them that are getting drafted pretty high, it means that we probably generally think you have 3 pretty good players, right? You got 3 pretty good weapons.
Yeah.
And if you have 3 pretty good weapons, it makes your life easier as a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So these
And it
two
makes it
kind of
easier for each other as well. You can't double team
right.
all of them. If you're gonna if you can't double team Adams and Waller and expect to just let Renfro eat up the middle all the time, they can't do it.
Right. So yeah, so like that kind of outlier thing too, considering quarterback rushing,
Well, so there are a few
that's
outliers
something
here.
we can figure that out on our own
Yeah.
beside this point, right?
Right.
These are 2
So
separate points that we can consider and factor in our
what's interesting is that
evaluations.
2017 was the last year of not really having a lot of run heavy quarterbacks. So 2018, here you can see number 1 is Mahomes, and he was drafted at 15th overall quarterback and ended up as number 1. And again, look at his weapons: 21.2 average ADP for his top 3, 39.4 for his top 4. Look at Ben Roethlisberger. He was the number 2 quarterback drafted at number 14, and his top 3 again: 16.3, top 4 51.5. This is telling us that people believe in them, and therefore we should believe in the quarterback. If you look at the other ones, these have negative numbers. That means that, Cousin was drafted at number 7, and he ended up being number 9. Watson was drafted at number 2, and ended up being number 5. Sometimes players regress. It's not obviously a perfect science, but I think that it's a very interesting point to note that, having good weapons gives you good results, and there's a chance for you to jump up high. Like before, I said Goff is not that bad. Here is that season where he was quarterback 6. Like
Good weapons.
he was good. He had good weapons, and who knew that Cooper Kupp could even be better than he was back then?
Well, I mean, I guess Sean McVay knew.
Sean
But
McVay knew. Yeah, Sean McVay knew.
I
The
mean,
other,
so your overall point here, I completely agree with this premise. Basically, like if you're thinking about the Raiders offense and you're saying like they're gonna be a wagon, they're gonna put up stats, they're gonna put up numbers, they're basically gonna carry everybody along with it. And if you assume that, then the quarterback of an offense that's a wagon is going to present value. And
yes,
especially if you consider in the context of where they're being drafted relative
exactly.
to the weapons available and how they're being drafted of other quarterbacks, like fantasy football doesn't like one of the big things is finding where you can get value in ADP or in a
Right.
salary cap league where you can spend a little bit less money and get a guy that's in the same tier or that you project to be giving you the same production as some other guy that's going to go for a little bit more money, right?
Right.
Or a
And
little bit higher round.
sometimes you can't predict it. If in 2019, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson had terrible weapons, nobody had faith in them, and they ended up exploding. Obviously, Jackson had that incredible MVP season, and Allen kind of broke out, had his mini breakout in that season, but people still were questioning his accuracy and stuff that year. And then, of course, well, you can see Dak. He was being taken 17th quarterback off the board, even with all these great weapons. Again, foolishness. Okay, but if you look at 2019 or 2020, same thing with Herbert. We didn't trust the talent, but we trust the talent around him. Same with Brady. Look at the talent around him. There are some outliers, obviously. Mahomes has the talent, and yet he did kind of poorly that year. I think, didn't he get hurt in that year? Maybe that had
Yeah,
something to do with it.
yeah, he
Um,
did.
but the point remains. All right, so we were just looking at the ADP of the top 3 and 4 weapons of the top 10 quarterbacks, and how basically the projections for their own ADP, the quarterback's ADP, can be buoyed by good receivers and backs, I guess, good players on their team to throw to. It is not perfect, but it's something to consider when looking at quarterbacks. This was the last season, 2021, and the biggest jump up was Kirk Cousins, who again had excellent receivers in Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook, and Tom Brady. Like, oh, man, some of these players, no one trusted that Brady would be as good. I guess Burrow was coming off of his injury. That makes sense. I was avoiding him as well last year. Stafford, I was not avoiding. I was very high on him because of this fact. I didn't look at these numbers specifically, but he was on my team because I figured he's going to this offense. He's going to be great. So yeah, you can kind of see for the most part that this lower number in the ADP of their 3 and 4 means that they're probably going to do better in their ADP than their ADP if they were drafted not so high. Okay, so I'm not talking about Mahomes, Herbert, and Allen here. Obviously, they've got players that are getting taken highly. You know, it's more likely that they're going to fall down. We're talking about players like Derek Carr, who are being drafted at a lower ADP, like in the 12 to 15 range, who you could get some value in. And a player other besides Derek Carr, obviously you should be considering is, I think, Kirk Cousins again. He's the same kind of player as Derek Carr, and he still has that elite talent around him, though I guess Thielen's getting a bit older. But if you're looking for other options,
right. Basically, if you have all of the weapons getting drafted high, the quarterback's going to finish fairly high. Like even you have like Mahomes and Rodgers, they're like underperformed relative to the ADP. But like
it's still QB4.
It's still QB4. Like if they have weapons drafted high, they are most likely a decent to good or even great quarterback, and most likely, even if they underperform, it's only because they're being drafted high and still finishing top 10. Yeah. We're not talking about like anybody that has all these weapons getting drafted high, they're going to finish fairly high. And
unless and the exceptions,
low,
well, the exceptions here are obvious that the high rushing upside. So you have Hurts and Allen, who they did not have the great targets. Now, obviously, Hurts got an upgrade with A.J. Brown coming in, but they are, the cheat codes players. Lamar Jackson is a cheat code player, potentially. Again, Kyler Murray potentially is a cheat code player. Players like this who have that rushing upside that provide a lot more than the receivers and backs can add.
But even Lamar Jackson is a decent example, like a decent case. Thinking of it in this kind of way that like he didn't have weapons drafted very high last year in particular. Like he had Mark Andrews drafted fairly high, but then Hollywood Brown not particularly, and nothing else beyond that. And he's not here in the top 10. Yeah. So even though he's like a cheat code Russian quarterback, like we didn't go into it thinking he's going to be on this offense with all these weapons that you need to value highly, and he didn't get in the top 10 here.
Well, he didn't finish in the top 10, I think, because he got injured also. And I think that if he didn't get injured, he would have easily finished in the top 10 because his running backs were both got injured in like the preseason, right? So they had to adjust themselves to a pass-heavy offense, and they were passing the ball a lot. The first game was against the Raiders, and it was a shootout. It was like in the 35-point plus game, shootout for both teams, ending in overtime. And they, I think they were still doing that. Had
a lot of Hollywood Brown last year.
There was a lot of Hollywood Brown, like random blow-up games last season, and you're like, oh wow! And obviously Andrews went nuclear and became, arguably TE1, certainly TE1 in Dynasty. Well, I guess he and Pitts, people are still arguing about that. Anyways, let's not get away from the point here. Derek Carr is going to do well, all right? He's got the people around him to help him succeed. And not only do the people, like the general fantasy community, think that his players are going to do well, just looking at those players' abilities, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about with Carr before we get to the individual players, but this is the individual players. Here are the red zone and green zone targets from 2021. Like, look at this list. This is from Pro Football Reference, and you can see Hunter Renfrow and Devontae Adams are both up there in terms of targets. This is the right number of targets. And the catch percentage, 78.26 for Renfrow, 67% for Devontae Adams. 10 touchdowns inside the 20. Renfrow had 10 total touchdowns on the season. All 9 of them came in the red zone. This dude catches touchdowns in near small field conditions. All right. He's not going deep. He's not scoring 50-yard touchdowns. He's not making big plays. He's getting them when he needs to. That's why he's called third in Renfro. He gets the yards that he needs. If you look at 2020 numbers, you can see the top 2 target getters in the red zone. Who are they? Devontae Adams and Darren Waller. Like, Darren Waller was injured last year. He missed time. That's why he's not on that list. That means that in the past 2 seasons, they have 3 of the top, was it 7, 8? 3 of the top 8 red zone target getters. All right? They're going to red zone target getters. Yeah, that makes sense. They're going to be getting targets. Like, they're all threats to catch the ball and to catch touchdowns and to score touchdowns. Combined, we have 10, 9, 14, and 6 from the past 2 years. Like, that's an insane number of touchdowns that could go to any of these players. The defense are going to have to pick and choose. Carr will find the man who's open, and he will get him the ball. All right? If Carr is able to work through his progressions in this part of the field, he'll most likely find one of these 3 unique weapons. They all have different skill sets. They all can win in different ways, and they've shown it that they can do it.
See, that's a big point. They have, each of these guys fills a different kind of role. They have set up that offense actually quite well, quite intelligently, in terms of having like every kind of guy and having a good guy for every type of offensive weapon that you might want. Right? You have Devontae Adams with his kind of skill set is very distinct and different from Hunter Renfrow and his skill set, and each is really good in being that kind of player that they are.
Okay. I think I finished all of my love of Derek Carr. My man crush on him knows no bounds, but I think I have to stop.
My last Derek Carr point is also that, like, maybe he's just like okay. So.
I mean, maybe he is just okay, but I think that there are lots of reasons why he's not just okay, and that now that he has a full complement of weapons, he'll be able to unleash his true potential, which we caught a glimpse of in 2016.
And when he makes some weird kind of dodge a tackle and just throw it up for grabs into a crowded area, just boneheaded, what are you thinking play? And you can feel frustrated, but that'll come like once every few weeks, and that's all.
He doesn't do that.
I guess, okay, sure, fumbles are probably more of an issue.
His fumbles are more his strength or weakness. Actually, one last point on Derek Carr is that I believe his TD to interception ratio was 23 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Now, that's nothing to go home about, but I think that 23 touchdowns is low, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if he bumped those numbers up significantly with the addition of Adams and with a healthy Waller all season. He should be able to get, pushing close to 30 touchdowns, maybe even more. He had 4,800 yards without a true deep threat for half the season, without his top target, presumably before, which was Darren Waller, for almost half the season. And he still got 4,800 yards with nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude can throw the rock, and he gets it to whoever he can. And now that he has these players, he's going to. So draft him, okay? Don't draft him at QB1. Not going crazy here, but
QB2,
maybe QB2. Yeah, after you've got those guys, I'm just saying he could end up being that high. I'm just saying you don't have to spend your early pick or spend too much of your budget on Josh Allen or Justin Herbert when you could wait and get a player like Derek Carr or even Kirk Cousins for much cheaper. That's all I'm saying.
The value, right? The value of where value. You're going to be able to draft them at versus what they should or could produce based on their situation, the weapons that they have, their past performance, like what we think these players are capable of versus where they're being drafted that's a value, right? You don't need to take Josh Allen in the second round or whatever.
Or first round of Superflex.
Yeah. If you think that Derek Carr can finish as a top 10, top 12 quarterback, no problem, and you can draft him way later. It's about the value, what you will get. Like Josh Allen to Derek Carr maybe is a pretty big gap, but like Derek Carr to QB3 might not be that big of a gap.
Yeah, or to QB5.
Right.
You know,
Just the difference there. Even we're not even to say that he will finish there. Maybe he will, maybe not. But like the gap between him and the quarterback 5 isn't going to be that big, and the draft capital that you have to spend on the QB 5 versus Derek Carr is going to be pretty big.
right?
So
Exactly. All right, so I think that we need to call it quits for now on this because we've talked for far too long about two single players. But I think that we've given you guys a lot of information, a lot of data that you can help extrapolate your own ideas from. And so we hope it was useful, and we hope you'll come back for the next one. We'll talk about the weapons more in depth, specifically of Geno Smith and Derek Carr. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk, the show, the numbers, the fun, the laughs, the faces,
the China, what?
the China, the flies.
Bad takes, terrible takes.
Well, there's only really like two of them, so I hope they weren't both terrible.
But there's going to be more takes you can take umbrage with coming soon. Don't worry.
Don't worry, more coming at you. Don't forget to subscribe and all that stuff that you guys do for podcasts. Find us on the iTunes store or Spotify, wherever it is you guys listen to podcasts. And we also have a YouTube channel if you guys are watching on YouTube. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, peace.